Hello friends, and welcome back to the next session of the one and only Bob. We are going to continue reading. We're going to jump right back into it because I have a tendency to waste a lot of time in the beginning monologue of our video, so we are just going to dive right back in. And we just left off with Kumu escaping and almost getting hurt by the police officer, Officer Williams. So we know that Ivan's safe, but now we're still wondering about Julia and George, so we will see what happens. Officer Williams climbs onto a picnic table. Someone hands her a megaphone so she can be heard over the din. If you're following along, I'm sorry, we're on page 216. Folks, she yells, listen up. We've got a handful of animal control workers coming over, but several roads are already flooded out, and the weather guys are saying Gus is going to take his sweet time. So Gus is the name of the storm. Meantime, park supervisors call in more help, but only if your workers get here safely. The unmistakable roar of a big cat rolls over us like slow thunder. Any more trank guns? Officer Williams asks the park director who just arrived. 3 in reserve, she answers. Nets? We have a dozen. Okay then. Officer Williams' radio crackles. I hear more shouting, more barking dogs. Shelter's flooding, she says. Yeah, that's happened there before, the director says. Usually just a foot or two of water. Okay, public safety is where we start. Officer Williams wipes rain from her forehead. We need to get the word out that these animals are on the loose. Of course, says the director, we have protocols in place, but we need to be careful how we word this. People might overreact. Ma'am, a firefighter interrupts. I see a python in my backyard. I'm sure as heck's gonna overreact. He's trying to get in here. First things first, says Officer Williams. Triage in the main office. Check wreckage for any survivors, human or animal. Fan out the trank guns. Get an inventory on how many animals are loose. I wonder how it's possible that Officer Williams can seem so composed. The air reeks with fear. From animals, birds, people. I have to let in my dog. There's a fly in here. Come on in, Sassy. There's a fly in here. Let him out. Okay. Sorry, friends. There was a fly and I wanted to let him back into the world. Actually, I think he escaped back into the house. Oh god. Okay. Sorry. And yet she doesn't seem worried about herself. Just other people. Lay down. Lay down. House. Okay, he's comfortable, guys. We can carry on. And yet she doesn't seem worried about herself, just other people. Weird. The way some humans stick their necks out for others doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? Again, the crackle, the hiss, the barking, my ears perk up for a minute. Was that a familiar voice? Maybe someone I know? Is it someone I know is in the slammer? Maybe. I'm going to the shelter at the elementary school, Sarah says. Her hands are trembling, but her voice is firm. To look for George and Julia, just in case. She strokes my head, and I'm happy to let her. I wonder if I should tag along with her, see if I can help out. Now that I know Ivan and Ruby are safe. Hiss, crackle, meow, bark. I hear it again. My ears go alert, my body goes rigid. No, it's impossible. Never. Some barks you never forget. I know what I have to do. Despite the turmoil all around me, the noises, the smell, the fear, the confused humans, the frantic animals, despite my worry about Julia and George, I know there's one place I need to be. Where do you think he's going? I want to tell Ivan and Ruby, but Ivan is still being poked at by the rhymes with pet threat of it. Although come to think of it, she doesn't seem like much of a threat. In a movie, She'd be one of the good guys. To my annoyance, Sarah picks me up. I hate being picked up, unless it's my idea. Then it's totally cool. Maya, she says, you let me know. You let me know first sign of George and Julia, okay? Promise, says Maya, and she places her hand on Sarah's shoulder. Humans always with the touching, although I kind of get it under these circumstances. You can't take Bob to the school shelter. They're not allowing any more pets, Maya points out, and the animal shelter is flooding, it sounds like. Why don't you leave him here? I'll put him in my office and he'll be safe. No way is that on my agenda. Sarah nods. Good idea. She starts to hand me over but hesitates when she realizes Maya still has a meerkat wrapped around her neck. It's just a split second, but a split second is all it takes to escape when you're Bob, untamed and undaunted. On my way. Bob, Sarah cries. Grab that dog, Maya yells. I spent a good part of my life running from a certain guy named Mac, and I still have my moves. I twist and spin and dip, and before you can say, yes, sirree, Bob, they've given up. I backtrap, slip under a bench, and make my way to Ruby. Ruby, I whisper, I gotta go. Something important's come up. You and Ivan see if you can find George and Julia. I want to come, Ruby says, stomping her right foot in a huge puddle. You need to keep an eye on Ivan, I say. Make sure Kignani doesn't drive him loco with her sobbing. I'll be back before you know it. I don't wait for another answer. I'm off into the world filled with wind and rain, with wolves and alligators, with a voice that could rip my heart into two. I'm trying to see if you can see. It's a crocodile on top of a car in a flood. It's a little bit of a mess. Oh, we're on part 3. Ivan used to ask me what I did when I wasn't hanging out at the Exit 8 Big Top Mall video arcade. I wasn't like the rest of the animals, caged, trapped. I told him I was gorging for food, and he never questioned it. When you think about it, though, where's a better place to find food than the floor of a mall at the end of the day? Yeah, I wasn't looking for food. I was looking for her. For Boss. At first, I didn't admit it to myself. You know how it is when you wish for something so bad you're afraid to say it out loud because what if it never happens? It was like that. I knew the odds were crazy long. I knew I was nuts, and yet I went out day after day searching for her. So Boss must be someone, maybe I'm forgetting who she is. I'm hoping that you remember. If you remember, let me know. There had been 6 of us in the litter, so why was I only looking for her? Because it was her bark I heard. Okay, it's Bob's sister. After the box landed, even after the truck roared past, I heard it. A whimper, bark, howl, cry, something I've never heard since. She survived, at least at first. I survived. The rest of them didn't. Relieved. And what did I do? When I heard that bark, did I run towards it? Did I try to find her, to save her? No. I was just a week old, helpless, useless. The cries stopped almost as soon as they'd started, and you know what? Part of me was relieved. I didn't want to go back onto that highway. I couldn't bear wanting to rescue her and not knowing how. I didn't want to see her die, but mostly I was afraid. I was afraid, a coward. There's a certain freedom that comes with owning your faults. Every day I went looking for Boss, up and down that same barren stretch of highway. Sometimes I'd catch a hint of something hopeful in the air and think it was my sister Sin. I'd be certain the breeze had brought me her voice, like an invincible gift. The wind can really mess with your head. After a while, I stopped going to the highway, stopped looking. It was a relief to give up. I had enough to worry about. As I ran from the park, I keep hearing my sister's yelp in my head. Still, with every step, my doubts grow. Sometimes we hear what we want to hear. The animal shelter is close, just down the street. But there's something quick about the trip. Water rushes past like a raging river. The sun's been swallowed by black clouds. I pick my way through muddy front yards, avoiding the worst of the water. I ain't much of a swimmer. Doesn't come up much in my line of work, although I do a passable dog paddle. The problem is my paddles. My paws are tiny. Not much to work with when you're fighting a flood. I see a couple humans with flashlights, carving tunnels in the sheeting rain, but mostly the street seems eerily abandoned, especially after the chaos of the park. The shelter is at the bottom of the slight hill. Rains pooled outside the front door, despite a pile of sodden sandbags. A police car is out front, parked at an odd angle. I find some footing on a large rock near the door. Take me 3 slippery tries, but I manage to leap onto the topmost sandbag. I bark with all I got, but I might as well be voiceless between the wind and the rain and the howling animals begging for escape. I pause to listen. I hear humans shouting, and I can make out what sounds like police radio chatter. But I don't hear a boss. I'm right here, right at the source. Nothing. It wasn't her bark I heard. She's dead, and I'm crazy for hearing things drenched and shivering. And where's Julia? Where's George? Hey, little guy. The door eases open just a crack. Every bone in my body, every smart part of my doggy brain says, run. This is an animal shelter, a flooding one, apparently. My sister isn't here, and I still have to find George and Julia. The door moves. Swoop. The loop comes around my neck so fast that for a moment I don't know what it is. It's like a cowboy's lasso, the kind in an old Western movie I used to watch with Ivan. But this lasso is at the end of a long metal handle. At an end of a long metal handle is a man. Stay calm, buddy. The man eases me gently but firmly off the sandbags and through the door. I'm inside the bow wow big house. The hound pound, the pet pokey. Oops. So we have another conflict, and that is that Bob is now inside the animal shelter, which is flooding, but it seems like he's really looking for his sister, Boss, but he doesn't hear her necessarily. I'm going to keep reading a little bit. The return of Snickers. Oh boy. The man pulls me along with his lasso, and I decide not to argue. We enter a small room stacked with animals-filled metal cages, and I'm assaulted by howls and hisses. The cold water on the floor sloshes as we walk, just skimming my belly. As bad as my smeller is, I instantly pick up one of a distinct odor. It's like the world's worst perfume, the kind old ladies emit. That's funny. The kind people spray on their dogs to camouflage their lovely dog stink. The kind Snickers wears. I catch a glimpse of her in the upper cage, bedraggled bow in her droopy hair. Snick baby, fancy meeting you here, I say. You look good behind bars. Harebrained, she replies. Hey, calls a rabbit 2 cages down. Watch your language. Matt couldn't deal with you, I asked Snickers. He brought me here because he thought it would be safer. Seems you may have been mistaken, I say. Carefully grabbing my scruff, Cowboy lifts me up into an upper cage. He pulls the lasso loose and shuts the barred door. I'm not happy. I'm sorry, friends. I had to have my coffee today. But it's a relief to be out of my noose. Oh, great, another one? Calls a woman wearing tall rubber boots. She pauses in the doorway. I thought we were turning people away. People, yes, says Cowboy. But this pup came solo. Tick-tock, folks, says an older ruby-faced officer. He's holding a radio in one hand and a flashlight in the other. You are running out of time. We hear ya, but first we've got to move everybody who's lower level, boot size. Last hurricane we had 2 feet to deal with. I swear they're getting worse. Climate change, says the officer. What are you gonna do? More than we're doing, says Boots. That much is for sure. I'll move the dogs from room 2, Cowboy offers. There are only a couple on the bottom level. They're out of cages, though. We'll have to double up. Put that little female in with the new guy, says Boots. They look like twins. I'm shivering, and it's not because I'm cold. I press my hurt nose to the metal bars. I smell something. I do. I hear something. I do. Cowboy returns, dog in arms, a bark. That bark. The door to my cage opens. Hey, I say automatically, even as my heart is already whispering the truth to me. They call me Bob. They call me Boss, says the voice. But by now I know, of course I know. And I'm howling with joy. Oh my God. Look at them. We're gonna end there. We'll do one more page. Thunder claps, shutters fly, windows rattle, water rushes, dog whimpers, cats howl, people yell. And all I can hear is my sister's voice. Guys, Boss lived. Oh, this is the best news. Sorry my video was a little chaotic. It's chaotic in the house sometimes. And I'm just so happy that Bob's sister is alive and okay and is now finally with him in the same little cage. What do you think's gonna happen? Do you think she's gonna be like a new character for us? Boss and Bob? I just love them. All right, leave me a comment on the Flipgrid. Happy Friday and enjoy your weekend.